You are listening to Be Amplified, the podcast with Bri and Thais, episode number 29. Hey Amplifiers, welcome to Be Amplified, the podcast. My name is Thais.
And I'm Bri Seeley. We are the co-founders of the Amplify Collective,
a movement aimed at radically disrupting how purpose-driven women connect and operate in the world.
Because we believe it's not just what you do, but who you are that matters.
Each week, join us for messages and interviews that will leave you feeling amplified and ready to change the world.
Let's do this.
Hello, hello.
Good morning, Amplifiers. Bri Seeley here.
Hey, Sky. We are excited as usual. It is Monday morning, and what's super special about this episode is that it is our last episode of season 1 of Be Amplified.
It is amazing how quickly this season has gone by. Like, I remember just 6 months ago, Thais and I were like, oh my gosh, let's do a podcast. And all of a sudden, here we are. So usually when Thais and I embark on a new project, we typically say we're going to try it out for X amount of time. So I think we gave ourselves, what, 6 months?
Yeah.
And I think it was like in month 2 that we started brainstorming for season 2.
Yeah, we love coming at you every Monday from my closet in Westwood, Los Angeles. We love sitting here and talking to you all about just really vulnerable things that I feel like every woman in the world, well, maybe not necessarily the world, but most women are embarking on, and we get the honor and the privilege of sharing our thoughts and our feelings and our ideas with you guys, and it's just so good. It's so good. So yeah, it's kind of bittersweet that season 1 is ending. I mean, we have right now we're averaging 700 listens a day from you all, which is indicative that this is, something that you guys are enjoying, and season 2 is going to be even more badass, like even more epic.
So stick around to the end of the episode because we do actually have a little bit of a surprise and a little bit of a gift for every single one of you. So make sure we're going to do a little wrap up at the end of this episode, which we don't usually do, but seriously stick around. Because it's good.
Well, and our interview, our guest today is just really amazing.
So good.
She's the CEO and founder of the Grand Courtège. That is our champagne sponsor. We get champagne from them for every single one of our events, and all of our women have raved at how amazing and delicious the champagne is. And her whole mission is to create champagne that is just created for women, because women are the consumers of champagne, and all these champagne companies are producing it and marketing it towards men. And so this is a radical new idea, and she's amazing. So we have her on a little bit later to talk about raising money and being a founder of a product and what that journey has been like for her.
And so one of the things we really wanted to touch on, and, by no means are Thais and I either experts in this area, but it is definitely a conversation that needs to be being had in our world. And that is, female funding.
Yeah.
Like, we have both recently been minorly educated on the fact that of all the venture capital raised in this country, and I believe we talk about this later in the episode too, only 4%, I believe, goes to women.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely atrocious because we as women are the ones who have the spending power. We're the ones that have the money in this country, and it's not being spent on our well-being. It's not being spent on elevating us in the world.
Women hold 80% of the purchasing power in this country because they do a lot of shopping and finances for their entire family. And so they are making the decisions of which toilet paper to use. They're making the decisions about buying their children's clothing. And they're making a lot of marketing decisions every single day. And so we hold a lot of money. We hold a lot of power. One of the quotes that really inspired me is by the Dalai Lama, and he says the world will be saved by the Western woman. And I truly believe that because we have so much privilege. We are stepping into our power in such a radical way. And maybe this past election didn't necessarily reflect that, but I believe that we are slowly and surely growing in our sense of power of ourselves, and that is going to create change externally. And so then the question is, why is it that we have such challenges and have such a hard time asking for money and valuing our worth and deciding who we are in the world? And that's the conversation that Brie and I want to have today.
And I'd also like to add to that, like investing in the proper ways.
Oh, yeah.
So, one of the things that I really want to encourage everyone to look at after listening to this episode is, where are you putting your money?
Yeah.
Where are you spending your money, and who are the people you're spending it on? I just found out that one of my airlines, not to get again too terribly political, but one of my airlines hosted a Trump rally. And after learning that, I am absolutely uninterested in ever flying their airlines again.
And there's organizations out there that are anti gay marriage. There are organizations out there that ban, transgendered individuals. There are a lot of organizations that are taking a stand for these values. And you just have to decide what your values are and then be conscientious about where you're putting your money and make sure that you're putting them with the values and the companies that reflect the world that you want to be creating. And it's not about being political. I mean, we don't care who you voted for. We don't care what you stand for, honestly, because we can't control you. We can only control ourselves. And money has power. So make sure that you are spending your money intentionally.
So for me, little things like even knowing if I'm going to go buy a bottle of champagne, I would rather buy Le Grand Courttage.
Go out of my way and go maybe
Even
drive a little bit further.
Spend a little bit more money to buy one of her bottles of champagne.
Yes.
Because I fucking know where that money's going to.
Yeah.
I know the impact it's making. I know her employees, and I know what kind of woman she is and how she's going to take that $20 I spend and turn it around into an even greater investment in the world.
And that's why I'm 100% always committed to spending money and investing in the women in our community. We're going through a rebrand, and the first thing that we thought of was, okay, we're going through a rebrand, we're updating our website, we're really excited. Who do we know in our own community that is already doing this work that we can hire? And the reason why we do that is because we want to invest in our people. We want to invest in the people that are in our community that are then going to change the world in their way. And that's very important to us, is to look and make sure, like, if you're buying a mass-produced item, is there someone in your community that is making it in a smaller scale, maybe a little bit more expensive, but it's actually going to feed their kids, and it's actually creating a community impact.
Well, and little things too, like Amazon does not support the kinds of politics that I choose to support. And so I was thinking for a while about, like, well, maybe I'll start ordering my cat food on Amazon, because I'm having to go to the fucking cat store like 3 times a month to get cat food. It'd be so much easier to just have it delivered into me. And at the end of the day, you know what? I actually just went to my cat food place and said, can you just order me a month's worth at a time?
Yeah.
Because I would rather support them. I know the guys and they carry the cat food out to my car. Like, I know them. I know what I'm investing in, as opposed to putting my money behind a company that I don't agree with. Like, yes, it's so easy to go to Target, and yes, it's so easy to go to Walmart or like any of these places, but like, where is your money going? We are the ones that have the purchasing power in this company. We are the ones. What did I say?
You said company.
Oh, country. Sorry. I'm on a little soapbox, guys. I'm getting a little, and I'm not thinking straight today. We're the ones that have an opportunity to actually make change in this world, and we're not fucking doing it.
Yeah, clearly we're very passionate about this subject because money holds power, like I keep saying. And so not only does it hold power in how we spend it with other people, but it also holds power in how we invite it in and how we ask for it in. One simple way is, I know a lot of women say yes to working with clients that don't excite them because they need the money. And by doing that, you take away your own power and your own capacity of being a service to the world, because you're not going to show up in the same way than if you were absolutely passionate about the client that you did bring on. So really, let's start getting a little bit more conscientious, a little bit more intentional on the flow of energy of money as it comes in and as it comes out. We have a whole podcast on money specifically that we encourage you to listen to with an amazing guest, Amanda Francis. It's a really good episode. You can go to iTunes and check it out there if you're not already there. But this conversation specifically is more about knowing your worth and knowing your power and knowing that money holds that power. And so being very intentional in how it comes in and how it comes out in your life.
So one thing that I have been really excited about lately is that actually the day that we recorded this podcast with Tawnya, I went to an event and I met this woman, and actually had the opportunity to become an investor for the first time in my life. And not only, mentor up and coming entrepreneurs, but actually put my money where my mouth is and invest in women owned businesses, because it's one thing for me to say that I support them, and it's another thing to fucking invest in it. And honestly, it was one of the most fulfilling. Like, I met that woman and went home that night and immediately spent $1,100, no questions asked, to put towards $1 million fund for female entrepreneurs.
So it's called SheEO, and we're going to have that in our show notes. So if you're interested in being a funder, is it a funder, an investor?
I think they call them activators.
Activators. If you want to become an activator, you can learn more about the organization. I think they're based out of Canada.
Yes,
and they're doing really cool things.
Yeah, they're based out of Canada, and they have funds starting in San Francisco, LA, and Colorado, I believe Boulder. But the deadline to become an activator is November 31st. So if you guys are thinking about it, like, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to put your money where your mouth is. If you're really, truly passionate about women rising up in the world, do something to fucking support them, because being an entrepreneur is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And for 10 entrepreneurs in each city, they're going to get the opportunity every single year to invest in women-owned businesses, because we know what we do when we have money. We put it in great places. We invest in our families. We invest in our hearts. We don't invest in things that are killing our planet and our environment and all of those things.
Yeah.
So many soapboxes.
So many soapboxes.
Oh my God.
Well, this is a really good conversation and a really good topic. And, I know a lot of women that I work with, and I feel like you probably have this too, Brie. They're like, well, I don't trust myself in spending money.
So many women.
Yeah, I've made bad decisions in the past and I don't trust myself, or even I don't know what to charge. I don't know my worth. I don't know if I can charge more money for my work because I don't value my work as that important. So these are two conversations. So let's address one at a time. The first one are women who are scared to spend money or large amounts of money because they don't trust themselves. Maybe they've been a binge spender in the past and now they're having to deal with the consequences of that, and now they don't know how to spend money again in a way that feels really good.
So my offering to this would be that women haven't been taught.
No, we haven't.
Like, think about it. My grandma, not on my dad's side, never got the opportunity to be responsible with money.
Yeah.
Like, she was not allowed to touch the money.
Yeah.
I just read a story online yesterday about a woman who voted for the first time, who was given a $10 a week allowance by her husband.
Yeah.
$10 a week.
And she was scared to vote because
she was terrified.
Her husband never let her vote and never let her really do much of anything, own a bank account or anything else. And
so let's be easy on ourselves and remember that just because you've made a quote unquote bad decision in the past, one, does not determine your future.
Totally.
And two, women are learning for the first time in history what it looks like to hold this power in a really great way.
Yeah.
So be easy on yourself.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we tend to gravitate towards when we're in a space of being uncomfortable, unsafe, is we create rigidity, and we create really hard structures like budgets. And we expect ourselves to align ourselves with this budget. And that was me for a very long time. I love to control every aspect of my life. And so I would control my calorie intake and my calorie outtake. Like, I would measure how much I was exercising. Like, I was obsessed with how many calories I was consuming and burning, and also how much money was coming in and coming out. And I would document every penny. And I would create really big, grandiose budgets for myself, like $50 a month on gas, and that's it. And if I was getting close to that budget, I wouldn't drive, and I would not say yes to opportunities so that I could stay within that budget. And I created this rigid system around myself because, of course, like, I was coming from a place of fear and I didn't trust myself. And like, what would happen if, I spent a lot of money and I had to deal with the consequence of that, and I didn't know how to deal with the emotions around that. And now I'm come to the place and realization that that's not the answer. Budgeting and calorie counting are not the answers, and I actually don't believe in budgeting at all. I believe in conscious spending. I believe in being very intentional with my money and knowing that if I'm making a purchase that feels really fucking good and really excites me, like whether it's an investment in a coach or in a handbag or in some expensive fruits and nuts at Whole Foods or whatever.
#organic.
If I feel really good about it, I will be supported in paying it off. And it has always been the case. I have always had more than enough money to pay off my bills every month. And so, even in times when I was in true lack and true fear around money, I would always find ways to pay my bills. I've never gone homeless. I've never been bankrupt. And so what I learned is that the more I can trust myself into asking myself, is this what really feels good? Or am I making this decision because I, want to be showy or not from an authentic place? And I get really comfortable in knowing what the answer is and how it feels in my life. And sometimes I find myself wanting to make a really spontaneous decision. Like, here's a good one. Everyone and their mother in the spiritual world is all about oils, essential oils. And I was like, oh, I got to have essential oils. Everyone else has essential oils. Like, I got to buy into this essential oils business. And I got on the phone with this very lovely individual who was telling me the benefits of oils, and she was walking me through, and she sent me some samples, and I was like totally in. I got on the phone with her, and we were talking about it, and it was like $150 to $300 for like a starter pack of oils. And I just didn't know which one to choose. And I could feel the energy of it being like, oh my God, I have to have it in order to look cool, in order to get these benefits. Like, I have to have it. And so I did what I've been doing a lot lately. It's been really checking in. Is like, is this something that's really going to make me feel good? And the answer was not yet. Like, hold. And so I held. And what I realized is I have those 3 samples of oils still. I don't use them. That's just not my thing. Like, I find benefits in other things. And as much as I know the benefits of oils, I just don't use it. And it's just not for me right now. And I wasn't in a place at that time to make that type of investment. And if I did, I would have had to, put it on my credit card. And so I really had to sit with it. And I made it a no decision at the time. And it felt really good and really empowered. And so then I made a purchase of something else, I'm sure. And then that felt really good. And every time I make a decision from a place that feels good, I'm supported. And so really, really decide that if you don't trust yourself around money, just invite the question of what's going to feel really good? Is this investment going to feel really good? Am I going to feel really empowered around this? And if it's a no, then give yourself a break and say no and take a stand for that. And if it's a yes, trust that you're going to be supported. Trust that the money always comes in. Trust that when you want to up level and quantum leap in the amount of money that you make, you're going to first have to make that type of investment in yourself.
So one thing that I want to differentiate is that keeping up with the Joneses is not what Thais is talking about when she says feels good. That is a temporary hit. That is like a drug. It's going to feel good, yes, in the moment, and then it is going to stop feeling good. And then this is where the cycle
remorse
comes in.
Yeah.
So then you have to keep up with the Joneses again in order to feel good until that wears off and stops feeling good. And then you have to keep up with the Joneses again, and it becomes a cycle. What Thais is talking about is making empowered decisions that feel good. So when it feels good, that you feel empowered by it instead of being led by lack.
Okay, so the second part of that is, okay, well, I know I'm undervaluing myself. I know that I'm not charging enough. I know that I'm not owning my worth when it comes to how much I charge, but I have no idea how I'm supposed to charge more when I don't feel worthy of it.
So one of the things that I work with my women on is really diving into like, why don't you feel worthy?
Yeah.
What is it like? What is the story that you're telling around you not being worth a certain amount of money? And women typically, granted, we make what, 3/4 of what men make?
Yeah.
Women typically undervalue their services.
Well, and what's interesting about that statistic too is that that's white women. If you're a Latino or a Black woman, you make even less than that. Women, we have to come together, man. Like, we cannot keep tolerating this. Oh my God. Anyway, so yeah, so it's like 3/4 of a man's dollar and less.
Yeah. So one thing that I, like I said, always recommend is diving into like why. So yes, some of it's societal, some of it's probably some stuff you're carrying around from that one time that one person told you that you weren't good at what you did or whatever it is, but really looking internally to figure out why you don't feel worthy, because until you feel worthy on the inside, you will never be charging the appropriate prices on the outside.
Yeah, and it's just so fascinating. People think that like just by somehow by charging low, you're gonna start feeling worthy. And I'm like, that's not how it works. If you charge $100 a month for your services, let's say, it's not like after doing that 10 million times that you're suddenly gonna feel worthy.
Worthiness feel progressively worse.
Yeah, worthiness is a decision. It's like you gotta derive your worthiness from something else besides money, and then know that money is just a product of your services. Like, it's just an exchange of energy. It doesn't mean anything about you. And releasing what that means about you is it's a hard conversation, because again, like Bree said, we weren't really taught to have a good relationship with money, and we're taught to look at it very logically, and like to look at our industry competitors and to base our prices off of them. But let me tell you, if you're pricing like everyone else is, you're doing it wrong, because it's not about what everyone else is doing. It's about, what do you do? How do you differentiate yourself from others? How do you infuse your love and service into other people? And then what's a value that's going to make you feel really good of yourself for putting that service into the world? And I gave a talk at my alma mater a couple weeks ago, and one of the women asked, she was like, well, I hear you that, up level your prices, that's important. She's like, but I want to serve underserved children and the education systems in underserved communities, and they don't have a lot of money. And I'm like, at the end of the day, like, you've got to decide what your values are, and trust that, you just have to look at your values around what it is that you're doing, knowing and trusting that whatever you charge, the right people are going to come into your life. But of course, you have to consider that you're probably not going to be offering them this huge package if that's not something that they can reasonably afford. And if you want to support them, then you're going to have to figure that out. And so you may want to balance the serving the underserved and serving people that are going to be able to support you, so that you can do that. But all I'm saying is, poverty is not spiritual. Like, being poor and broke and not making a lot of money is not a spiritual path. We look at Jesus, we look at Buddha, and they disowned all things, right? Like, Jesus didn't need things. Buddha used to be a prince. He went into the real world. He decided to release all of that. And so we have this idea that if we want to be enlightened, if we want to be spiritual, then we have to be like them. The thing is, it's all about this conversation of abundance. They found abundance and resources outside of money. They were extremely abundant, right? Jesus turned water into wine. Like, they were in their own way truly abundant in the resources that they required in order to teach. In our society, the way that we hold abundance tends to be around money. And so making sure that if you want to feel abundant, one, you can feel abundant without money. Infuse more of that and you're going to get more money. And money is a very important conversation in feeling abundant.
The other note I wanted to add was that a lot of people wait to be deemed worthy before they raise their prices. They're waiting around for the proverbial fairy godmother to be like, you are now worthy. You may now charge, blah, 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 blah. I will give you a little heads up right now. That will never fucking happen.
Yeah, I wish that would, though.
I mean,
okay, no,
nice.
Pause. No, actually, it will happen. Ready? Dear listener, Thais and Bree formally decide that you are worthy. You are welcome. Accept this testament of worthiness.
And go fucking raise your prices.
Now go fucking raise your prices.
That was good.
I do what I can.
But yeah, like, worthiness comes from you. And until you fucking make the decision to be worthy and make the decision to be abundant, you will keep spinning your wheels. And that's just how it is. And unfortunately, I wish more women would dive into their worth. I mean, I think it is happening, but I think that 4% of funding wouldn't be the norm if more women took a stand for their worth in the world.
I mean, so at the CEO event, it was really cool. I was there with Bree, and there was these women who, I mean, the way that the night went down was anyone could go up into the front of the room and ask for what they wanted, any type of support, whether that's funding or mentors or resources. Like, they could ask for whatever they want, and then they would be tied. Like, someone would raise their hand and be like, I can support you. And then they would be matched up, or several people would raise their hands. But you should have seen how awkward it was for these women to ask for what they want. Like, they went up there and they were mumbling, they were looking down, they weren't clear with what they wanted.
They were incoherent.
They were incoherent.
Couldn't understand what they were saying.
Yep, you couldn't understand them. They were talking too fast, too low, too whatever. And it's painful to watch, because, like, I know that if it was the same room but men, holy shit, like they would be asking for things in such a different attitude. And the thing I do have to say about Trump is that even though he has absolutely no experience, he won the president of the United States simply by his confidence in being able to do so. The only thing I can give him is that his confidence is what got him into the biggest, most powerful position in the world. And so, not to say be like Trump, but really look at the fact that if you decide to claim your worth and rise into your voice, you're going to get, because you're going to ask for what you want in a clear way, and you're going to get what you want in a more powerful way. And then we get to add into that cycle, and then you get to give whatever you want in a powerful way. And that's the whole point. We ask to receive so we can give. And in that giving, we become leaders. In that giving, we support each other. In that giving, we decide, like, enough is enough. Us women have to rally together. And speaking of rallying together, our little secret at the end of this episode is so good. And it's all about supporting women rise. It's not a sale. It's really good. It's like, we're not leading up to a sale here. We're leading up
a little juicy tidbit that Thais and I decided to put together because we love you guys so fucking much.
Yeah. So stick around to the end, but I think let's bring on our guest.
Well, you know what one of my favorite things in the whole wide world is.
Let me guess. Your cats.
Second favorite.
Champagne.
Yes. So I was lucky to stumble upon Tawnya Falkner a few months ago. She is the founder of Le Grand Courttage. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before we get into our interview. So a few years ago, Tawnya took the leap and gave up her career as a designer and real estate developer in San Francisco, and she up and moved to Burgundy, France, to study the wine regions, learn the business, and develop the blend.
Amazing.
Her journey is now what has resulted into the launching of Le Grand Courttage. So, as a statistic, females purchase 80% of bubbly.
I love that.
Isn't that amazing? And as a consumer, Tawnya was super surprised by the prevalence of all the old world style of French wines with traditional packaging and palate profiles combined with super expensive prices. So she felt by having access to some of the best grapes and producers, she could disrupt this market by providing customers with an affordable, approachable, versatile French sparkling wine designed for life's everyday moments.
Oh, I love that. Welcome to our podcast, Tawnya.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
And happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. So we like to start off our interviews by asking our guests. So we'll ask you, what does it look like for you to live an amplified life?
I think in a nutshell, well, not that probably not in a nutshell since I like to talk, but, when I look at living an amplified life, it's about really finding the joy in the simple pleasures and making sure that, you're doing what feeds your soul. And, why I was living in San Francisco before moving to France. And, as you hint on a moment ago, champagne is so expensive, but to me, the significance of food and wine is it's the great common denominator. It's what brings people together. And when you talk about the French spirit of the joie de vivre, it's, truly the joy of life in the essence. And whether it's sharing a glass of bubbles on the beach with friends, it's a date night at home, it's taking a bubble bath after a crazy long week on a Friday night, it really is those simplest of things that bring us back and center us. And to me, that it's following your dreams, pursuing your passions, whatever that may be, big or small, but, you only get one pass at, this thing called life. And, so it's not letting our fears stop us and, stepping out of the box, diffusing the no, because unfortunately in life, so many people are going to be the naysayers. And so it's, ultimately following what feeds your soul and your heart. And that to me is, being amplified, if you will, because it's making sure that you're doing what is, speaks to your heart. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when you look back at your life's work, that it is something that you're proud of and feel fulfilled.
I love that. And I can honestly say, I believe that I have enjoyed Le Grand Courttage in all of those situations that you mentioned.
Good.
Yes.
You're part of the bubbly brigade, as we call it.
Yes. I am all about the bubbles. There's always a reason for a glass of champagne, in my opinion. Like, always a reason. So,
And I was going to actually, sorry if I
oh
might
yeah,
interrupt. I was going to say, part of uh, that whole philosophy, if you will, it's my personal philosophy, but even on the back of all of our bottles, it says, embrace life, dream big, accept all invitations. And so really most importantly at the core, it's bringing people together. I don't find sales to be a comfortable thing. I'm good at it, but I didn't set out to want to sell a product. Rather, I feel like we're really in that lifestyle business and you're selling, an experience. And with our whole philosophy of the embrace life, dream big, accept all invitations, it's to offer that little reminder about ultimately what it is to lead an amplified life, because with our technology society and computers and cell phones and things constantly tying you, I think it's hard to step off and take those moments for yourself.
totally. I totally agree. So when you talk about that accepting all invitations, Thais and I love the hero's journey. And so I'm curious to know, when you were in real estate and a designer and all of those things, was there a moment when you had this idea and you were like, no, there's no way, like, I'm not moving to France, I'm not doing that? What was that transition like for you, of finally saying, I'm going to give up what's been working and take this huge leap and just move to France and follow my vision?
hmm It, it's interesting because a lot of people ask me a similar question. And I think there's a perception like, oh, you must have been super unhappy with life and you hated what you were doing and gave it up. And I was fortunate, since I was like 14, I knew I wanted to sort of do architecture and development. I loved the built environment. I was very passionate about that. But I feel like there's so many things in life that pique my interest, and so I like to say I'm more of a student of life and like to explore. And so, living in San Francisco, of course, you're right outside of Napa, one of the best wine regions in the world. But for me, there's so much that association of most Americans still say I'm drinking champagne, and whether it's Cook's or Andre or Dom Perignon, there's very much this all bubbles are champagne, and there's association with France and sort of what that embodies. And so when I was living in San Francisco, it's such a food and wine centric community. And, I was seeing that bubbles in particular, there's, yes, most French wines say Domaine this, Chateau that, it's plain green glass. And so I joke that Le Grand Courttage is kind of my baby real estate, because at the end of the day, to get a spot on a shelf or on a wine list is very expensive real estate, because you're ultimately kicking somebody off. And so the gap I saw, and sort of what gave me the confidence to pursue this, was really I saw a gap on price, palette, and packaging. 5 years ago, 6 years ago almost, when I took the leap and moved to Burgundy, sparkling wine was growing at double the rate of still wine at the time. And, huge growth in the category, lots of people drinking Prosecco, sort of a shift in the special occasion only. But champagne is so expensive and becoming more so. So I was like, gosh, the French have amazing wines, but they don't market for the American consumer. So I started doing all this research, and it's like, well, females, I'm the core demographic, my friends and such, we purchase 80% of bubbles, French wine is so traditional in its packaging. The American palate's a little bit sweeter than Europeans, and females is a little sweeter than men. So I thought, by designing a really beautiful bottle, sort of personified my first love of design and architecture and things like that. It still encapsulates my sort of first passion. I softened the palate, and then I really wanted to make something that was very affordable. So though I'm a dreamer, and the romance of moving to France and making wine sounds lovely to most people, the reality is my dream, if you will, is very grounded in practicality. And I had done an enormous amount of research before I just took that leap, put together a business plan, and ultimately just moved to France without any connections. There was a boy at the time that I moved there with, but we moved there. All good and bad stories start and end with a boy or a girl, it seems so often. But I really saw this this gap, and so I thought, well, worst case scenario, I travel for a year or something. Best case, I come back with wine. And I think that leap was scary, but I think if you're willing to put forth the effort, that you've done your research and homework, it's all of us have the same fears that drive us every day. I don't care if you're talking about the president of the United States or, some, woman that has a vision about starting a small business in her community. Fear defines most of us, and it's ultimately sort of stepping outside of that box and getting comfortable with that fear, knowing that it's like if you're willing to put forth the effort, you're no different than anybody else. And so I had this business plan, and then, fortunately met a couple people in France that really believed in this vision, and that it was grounded by a lot of research. And so it wasn't just some pie in the sky idea of like, oh, it sounds lovely to make wine, let's just go for it. That it, really was articulated by a strong business concept backing it up as well.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I love your story. I love how you've created a blend between, the dream and the reality, right? Like you were able to mix both of them to create a really incredible product. And I hear that you just completed your first round of successful funding. And I'm curious how that experience was for you, because I know that women have a harder time putting themselves out there when it comes to asking for what they want, especially around funding and asking for money. And so I'm really curious how your experience was.
Well, in short, it was hell. But truly, I literally just finished, and we raised a couple $1 million, and which was daunting at the start, but you see so often, especially living in California, San Francisco, you've got Silicon Valley. I now live in Venice Beach, which they, jokingly call Silicon Beach. And you see these tech companies getting money left and right with insane valuations. And yet women only get 3% of the funding that is given in the US, which is really sad, where
wow.
we don't get nearly as much of the bank funding, and certainly any of the equity or capital investment that's coming. And I think there's
hold on. Can we repeat that statistic again? Because I really want our listeners to see the disparity in this idea. So tell us again how women get how much of the funding?
Only 3% of the equity or capital that is given to businesses is given to women.
That is mind-blowing, Jinx.
In stereo.
Well, and that means that men get 97%.
Mm-hmm. And I bet you it's not because there are more men, it's because men ask. Right? Like, it's not that there's more men businesses. It's just that men have the audacity to ask for what they want.
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. Secondly, I've seen, and I don't quote me for sure on this, but I've seen recently that women own 51% of the small businesses. So even if it's roughly, half of the businesses and we're only getting 3%, it really shows that disparity. And I think the biggest issue is that so often the people giving the capital are men. And so with the female businesses that are being presented, it doesn't fully resonate. And so, our brand is unisex. Certainly men and women drink champagne or sparkling wine. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit more female centric in terms of the end consumer who's choosing it, and even our whole marketing and aesthetic and things like that. And so I think the problem is partly far fewer men that are giving, or far fewer females are investing in companies as well. And so the people that are doling out the monies don't really get the vision of some of these female companies. And so, hands down, raising capital was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I did.
Wait, one more thing before you move forward, because I really want to hear more of this. But isn't it true? Like, I feel like I've been hearing it that the women consumer is the number one consumer market in our country, and maybe even the world, but definitely in our country, we have more purchasing power. Like, our purchasing power is increasing. So it's fascinating that there are more women that are consuming these products. There are more women businesses, and yet the amount of women represented in investing and being funded is so low, so abysmally low. That to me is incredible.
And you're absolutely right on that. And when you look at consumer goods in general, and that's everything that we buy, whether it's clothes, groceries, whatever, women do more than 80% of the purchasing in this country.
Wow.
And when you think about in traditional society, women are still doing the vast majority of grocery shopping. They're buying the kids' clothes, they're buying Christmas goods, whatever it may be. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, I often say to our distributors that, the way it works in the wine world, I have to sell to a distributor. The distributor sells to a restaurant or retailer, and then the restaurant or retailer is ultimately selling to the consumer. So I'm often saying, even in our distributor meetings, like, women buy 80% of consumer goods, but yet men are dictating the vast majority of the decisions of what's getting
Yes.
sold, because even at the distributor level, all the senior management is almost exclusively men. We're in 44 states now, and there's only a handful of women nationally that are in senior management or above. So when you think about, I'm specifically speaking of the wine world, but I'm sure it's not unique to many of other industries, that if men are kind of the gatekeepers and are ultimately dictating what's getting sent to consumers, it makes it sort of difficult to get on the shelf, literally and figuratively. And similarly, coming back to the core of the conversation from a financing perspective, it's so phenomenally difficult to access the capital. And you hear statistically how many businesses fail in the first year or the second year, and the reality is there's so many phenomenal ideas out there, but I think often it's, you've got losses the first couple of years. In the US, statistically, it takes about 5 years before you reach profitability. So you're funding losses initially. Then, in my case, coming from a real estate world, we would, I did large scale development, like downtown redevelopments. We'd have $50, $100 million deals. Once it was financed on the front end and you got the banks to underwrite it, you were good to go. What's curious in an inventory business, in any of these consumer goods, the bigger you get, the more inventory needs you have. Well, you have this gap between payables and receivables. So it's like, all right, I import product from France, so I have to bring in tons of product, and it's 6 months before I get paid for it. So not only are you initially covering your losses because you're not profitable the first couple of years, you're needing more and more inventory. And so, I count my lucky stars and I'm very grateful to be in this place, today, and having raised the capital. But literally, as of, 60, 90 days ago, I was like, if this doesn't close, I'm going to go under. And it's so scary and it's so sad. And you feel like a failure so many days, because you're like, how do all these people get money? And yet, why am I struggling? I think I'm pretty smart. I work my butt off. I work 100+ hours a week, every week, and yet I can't access the capital. And so there's the book Tao Te Ching, and they're one of the chapters talks about success is as dangerous as failure, and whether you go up the ladder or down it, the rungs are equally as unstable. And that's
I
really
love that.
Really resonated with me going through this capital phase, because at the end of the day, you might have amazing successes, and we've got Virgin America as a client, Omni Hotels, California Pizza Kitchen, Fairmont, Kimpton's, Waterby. I have amazing accounts, and yet if I didn't close this capital round, we are going to go under. And I think it's a really important part of the conversation that most female entrepreneurs don't understand or realize going in. I certainly didn't. And so it's so important to have people like yourself in the Amplify Collective, because you're bringing people together. And I didn't have the community and the beginning where I felt like I could talk to other female entrepreneurs and share in the trials and tribulations and have the shoulder to cry on, but also have access to information, because we can help each other. And so that's where I think you and what you're building and this community you've created is so amazing, because it's one of the most important parts of being an entrepreneur and having that community.
We agree.
Thank you. So I want to go back to something quick. So you talked about, you have Virgin America, you have California Pizza Kitchen, you have Omni Hotels, you have all these big accounts. And as of 60 days, there was a chance that you were going under. So I want to talk a little bit about your mindset. This is totally my area of expertise, and sorry if I'm going to steer it in my direction. But I want to know, what were you thinking? What were your mental state? Where were you at? Because here you are, in one breath, you're like, shit, my company's closing down. And in the other breath, you're like, I have to have everything together to go in front of these people that are going to give me millions of dollars. So what was that like? I can only imagine this constant push and pull of can you talk to us more about that experience?
Absolutely. And that was one of the hardest things because here, of course, at the core, I'm in a sales capacity. And so every day you're out and, trying to put on the very positive face with your distributors, with these top accounts. Like I just got back from Hawaii and, presented to, the Ritz and the Fairmont and the Grand Wailea and all these amazing accounts. And we just secured a core placement with MGM hotels in Vegas for Bellagio, Aria, Mandalay, all
Amazing.
those. And so I'm presenting and you're, securing these top accounts. But then internally, I'm like, holy shit, sorry, I shouldn't swear. So
No, swear away. We swear.
Holy cow, I'm going to go out of business. And so it was a conundrum in the truest sense where I'm like, all right, I've got to be as positive as possible and, get yourself up out of bed and be phenomenally optimistic. And, at the core, I am the eternal optimist. I have the rose colored glasses. And I would like to say I'm grounded in practicality. It's not like I'm, ridiculously optimistic and don't see the gross realities, and you have to be pragmatic. But it was this real quandary to be so positive externally and with my team, with prospective investors, and certainly with distributors and accounts, because I needed you're needing more and more sales in order to pique the interest of distributor or investors. Excuse me, I apologize. You're needing more and more sales to ultimately pique the interest of investors. And so, every day you're getting out of bed, you're trying to drive sales. I'm desperately needing this money. And so literally the fear is almost paralyzing some days. And, I had to get to the point with when I was really struggling, I had to dissect the fear, like analyze it, reframe it. And then sometimes it was just taking the leap, trusting your gut. And I think the bottom line is I had to live with a huge amount of fear and face it every day and really deal with those insecurities because, of course, you're worried about, oh, my business is going to go under. I have employees, I have commitments I've made to vendors and so on and so forth. But then also just, the personal fear of failure. And I think women have a hard time. Most of us are super women. We're juggling far too many things in any given day. We're great multitaskers, but it's like really that internal struggle of, am I good enough? Am I worth it? What's wrong with me? All these things. And a couple months ago, I read an amazing article, and I can't recall if it was an Inc. or Fast company, I believe. And it was called Clinically Depressed or Just an Entrepreneur. And, and that was kind of one of those holy cow moments, because when I read it, it really talks about, all these classic depression symptoms of, are you good enough? Do I have what it takes? Financial insecurities, all the internal voices, and many, they listed a ton of things that are, quote unquote, classic signs of depression. And they said, the reality is most entrepreneurs, it's not in their DNA to say that they're depressed. And most, it's like most entrepreneurs are drivers at the end of the day. And so it said the entrepreneur is not feeling depressed in the classic sense, but the physiological impact of all of those things is so profound on the body. And so it really talked about the fact, not only do we experience one, if not all of these things on this list, but for a very extended period of time. So it was one of those, like, slap me across the head with a 2x4 where you realize, like, you have to give yourself a lot of credit for what getting to this point, for what you do on a daily basis as an entrepreneur, and realizing what you are really like with it. The struggle is so real, and cutting yourself a break. And I think that that's hard, where we all beat ourselves up a little bit. And that's where the community, I think, becomes important, because in the absence of having that, it's so isolating. And, we're not trained in this country to like bear your dirty laundry. And, lots of people go to therapy, but it's different where, you don't talk about money, you don't say all these things, and you're trying to exhibit a very positive face about a company, and yet all this is going on. And so I thought that article was so profound to me, and I joke about it with a lot of people, but I think it's a very important part of the conversation of what we all struggle with.
Yeah, and I just want to circle back around quick and reiterate something that you said. And for anyone that's listening that's facing these really huge, deep fears within yourself, I think what Tawnya illustrated in her journey that was so important, and like literally rewind this and go back and listen to it again, is that it's not about the fear. Like we all face fear in our life. Like she said, whether we're President Obama or, running a champagne company, whatever, but the fear part isn't important. It's that you get up and you do it anyways. So I know Thais has a question, but I just wanted to really cement that in and encourage people to go back and listen to that specific section.
Yeah, I do have a question. We mentioned the 3%, very, very sad numbers. And I'm curious, what advice would you give women who are looking at funding, who are looking at investors, who are looking at taking their business in that capacity? What advice would you give them that may support them in kind of helping to increase the number of women that goes after this sort of opportunity?
I would say first and foremost, start raising capital before you think you need it, because it's going to take far longer than you expected. And, so be cultivating that, far earlier. But one thing I didn't do, and I think it comes back to sort of, women are not good at asking for help professionally or personally. And so it was partly that in sort of my DNA, if you will, but also, there's when you're developing a business, everyone has competition. So there's a part about keeping everything sort of close to your vest, not sharing all your ideas of how you want to build the brand and what you see. And so I didn't seek a lot of industry insiders and sharing that because I saw them as competition. On one hand, they are, but the reality is there are a lot of people that are more than willing to help. And so in hindsight, I wish I would have sought mentors and industry confidants a lot sooner, because I think it could have made my path a lot easier. And if you've got a really good vision, you know what, don't be afraid to put it out there, because we can't be an island. And so I really wish I would have really sought sort of that mentor type thing and talk to a couple people in the industry, because what I think we negate our own ideas or abilities sometimes, like, oh, little old me, what are they going to think? And the fact that I landed this Virgin America deal on my own, they bought 200,000 bottles of Le Grand Courtège, which is amazing. And I started going after them as a new brand. Well, if I told most people, they'd be like, yeah, that's nice. And you're ridiculous. And a big company like that is not going to buy product from a brand new company. And so we kind of I think stop ourselves and don't share things. And so I really would encourage ultimately, finding some mentors and talking people industry, at the core, and having groups like Amplify that you can share this information, because I didn't do any of those things initially, and partly it's like, oh, I'm so busy and I don't have time, which is true and valid, but I think it's very important and will alleviate a lot of stress and anxiety by doing those things and carving out those moments. Ultimately to cultivate those relationships.
We totally agree.
Yeah, we do agree. And it's important. I mean, we preach it all the time, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are going to support you and who are going to elevate you, and being very strategic about who you ask for advice. Don't ask for, don't even share your plans if it's to people who don't believe in you or don't support you or don't think that you're capable of. And make sure that you do use the mentors and the people in your life that do support you and will give you the type of advice from the business inside that will take you to the next level. We love that so much. I feel like we could keep talking forever, but I do want to ask, Tawnya, for people who are interested in getting a taste of the Grand Courtège, where can they find more information about your company?
Absolutely. So our website is legrandcourtage.com, which is LEGRANDCOURTAGE.com. So
and we're going to have that in the show notes so that people
can. Perfect.
Yep.
So legrandcourtage.com is the best place to find information. And we're now available in 44 states and available in lots of different restaurants and retailers. So it's exciting to see the growth. And, one thing that I am very proud of what myself and the team have done in a very relatively short period of time. We've been on the market for about 4 years now, and with a dinky team and no money, what we've accomplished, and now with the capital, really what it enables me to, carry out the vision and really hopefully become a national, if not a global brand. So,
fuck yeah.
That's so exciting. I'm seriously when I read Tanya's story, her Le Grand Courtège was served in an event we were at, and I read her story, and I immediately was like, I have to know this woman. And I reached out to her on LinkedIn. And so we at Amplify serve Le Grand Courttage at all of our events.
So if you want to know what it tastes like, just come to one of our upcoming events.
We actually have a big event in December coming up that Tawnya and Le Grand Courttage will be at, and we highly encourage you guys to come. It's a great brand, of course, woman owned, which we fucking love. And come see us. And you should also follow them on Instagram because they have the most beautiful Instagram feed, for real.
Thank you. And likewise, and I love all the inspiration that you dole out on a daily basis, because ultimately all of us need inspiration externally and to fight the fight and get up every day and keep doing it. So I really appreciate you involving me in the show and for sharing all the bubbly love and for doing what you guys do, because ultimately it's for people like myself, it does make a difference. And providing those daily little nuggets of something that you need just to okay, I can do this. So thank you.
Thank you. So if for anyone that is not already following us for our daily nuggets on Instagram, you can find us at the Amplify Co. We're also on Twitter and Facebook as well. Oh, okay, guys. Was that not the best interview ever? I freaking love that woman.
Yeah, Le Grand Courttage is good. Go check out their website. See if they have a retailer near you. It's worth it. Or, just come to one of our events.
That too.
You will get a taste of how good that champagne is.
All right. So this was supposed to be our last episode.
But with the current election situation, we felt called to create another podcast for you guys. Podcast episode for you all on the conversation of how to support one another and the now what conversation. What do we do now that the election is over? How can we continue to activate women's voices and empower women and get us back out in the front of the community's conversation?
Yeah. There is a very specific way. So it's actually going to be a secret episode.
Dun, dun, dun.
So not everyone gets it. If you're listening to this, you'll have access to it. And the way that you have access to it is we will be announcing it on our Facebook group.
Yeah, so we currently have a Facebook group called Be Amplified, the community. Get it? Because it's Be Amplified, the podcast. We thought we were very witty when we came up with that title. And this Facebook group is for those of you who are really inspired by our podcast and you want to create more community around it with other amplified women. Mm-hmm. And we love this group and we're nurturing the crap out of this group and we're always in there supporting you all. And we are going to be launching our secret podcast episode just to the Facebook group. Yep. So if you want access to the secret podcast, and actually in coming season 2, we're going to be doing a lot more secret podcasts.
Yeah, we're basically with every episode that we do, with every guest we have, we're going to be asking them extra secret questions and releasing extra additional kind of outtakey clips from each episode and from each guest that you can then go listen to, but only the members of our Facebook group will get access to that.
And it's totally free. There's no cost to this. This is just an opportunity to go deeper and to engage in a more juicy conversation around being amplified. So you can find us. You can either search in Facebook for #Be Amplified, the podcast, and it will come up.
The community.
Yeah, #Be Amplified, the community. Or you can go to facebook.com/groups with an S /Be Amplified.
Yeah. So one other thing that I love about this group is that for any of you that listen to it alone, this is a really great place to go in and kind of drop in your aha moments or anything that you have questions about. Like Thais said, she and I are in there all the time. We want to support you guys. We want to love on you more. We want to answer your questions. We want to dive deeper into life with you. So go join the Facebook group. We will be releasing the secret episode probably same time next week, like we always do.
Yeah.
And there will be a password protected page on our website that you can access it.
Amazing. So it's facebook.com/groups/Be Amplified. We'll also add it to the show notes. We love you all tremendously. Thank you for sticking around for an entire season.
Yay.
We love you. We love this. And we're so excited for season 2 launching in the new year.
Yeah.
So
end
you
of
guys get a
January.
little, you guys get a little break, an opportunity to catch up on previous podcasts. And who knows, maybe Brie and I will launch a couple other secret podcasts in the group between now and January. No promises, but who knows. But yeah, until season 2, baby,
We love you guys.
go be amplified.